Hello to you all. My name's Father Enda Murphy, and I'd like to thank Father Paul for inviting me to share these few thoughts with you about the great Irish missionary who helped to bring the faith to your part of the world in Missouri, Father Bernard Donnelly. Why have I been asked to speak to you? Well, because Father Bernard came from the same diocese that I come from, the Diocese of Killmoor in Ireland. Kilmore in the Irish language, on Kilmore, means the big church. And as you gather to celebrate the dedication of the mother church of your diocese, the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception in Kansas City, Missouri, it's a time to reflect on what the church means to us, what it meant to Father Bernard Donnelly as he set out from Ireland to bring the faith to your forefathers. As I say, Father Bernard came from the Diocese of Killmoor. Today the diocese is a relatively small diocese. It takes in a number of counties. It starts at the Atlantic Ocean in County Leitrim, and then it runs in a southeasterly direction across the country, taking in most of the north of County Leitrim, nearly all of County Cavan, a little bit of County Fermanagh in Northern Ireland, where I come from, and it also takes in a little bit of County Meath, where the diocese ends there. Today there are about 80,000 Catholics in the diocese. The time of Father Donnelly there would have been many more, but because of the potato famine in the 1840s, especially 1847, many people emigrated. Father Donnelly was one of those. Many people died and the population of the country plummeted. So where did Bernard Donnelly come from? Well, Father Bernard was born in the year 1810. His father was called John Donnelly and his mother was called Rose Fox. Fox was her maiden name. And he was born in the parish of Lara in County Cavan. And that's where my connection comes in, because when I was ordained a priest in 2001, I was sent as a curate or as an assistant pastor to the parish of Lara, and I lived in a place called Cliffernagh, which is the church area where Father Donnelly was born. He was born, as I say, in 1810 in the townland of Kilnacreeva, and there's still a house on the site where he was born. It's not the house, but there's a plaque on the wall, and I've shared photographs of the house and the plaque with Father Paul, whom I hope he'll be able to show those to you. So he was born there, and at that time, the people of that area of the parish worshipped in a small stone-built church with probably had a thatched roof in the townland of Cormean. And that church was built in 1796, and I've also shared some photographs of that site with Father Paul. What do we mean when we say a post-penal chapel? Well, after the Protestant Reformation in England, and at that stage Ireland was one of the kingdoms that was ruled from England, what were known as the penal laws came into force, which meant that Catholics could not practice their faith. It was outlawed for priests to celebrate the Mass. But from the 18th century onwards, those laws began to be lifted. And so in 1796, this, what's called a post-penal chapel, was built in the townland of Cormean. And that's probably most likely where Father Donnelly worshipped as a young boy, probably going with his parents every Sunday to celebrate the sacred mysteries in that place. That chapel lasted from 1796 to 1821, and in 1821 a new church was built in that area, the present-day St. Michael's Church, which this year celebrates its 200th anniversary. It was built, as I say, in 1821, and we can imagine that the young Bernard Donnelly, who would have been 11 years old when it was built, probably was one of the first people to worship in that place. So he probably was formed in the faith there, and it's that faith that he carried with him to such effect over to your part of the world, and we thank God for that. So I've also shared a picture of that church and some photos of the interior of that church, which was renovated recently in the year 2006. Now, the people of Clifferna, that area where Father Donnelly was from, are well aware of Father Donnelly. Some people from the locality have visited Kansas City in Missouri, and they've written some articles in some local bulletins and local histories about him. So he's well known in his own locality, and people are genuinely proud of what he achieved out there. Today, the parish of Lara is made up of 3 church areas. The main church, St. Bridget's Church, is in Lara itself. Then there's St. Michael's Church in Clifferna, the area that Father Donnelly came from. And then there's St. Patrick's Church in Carrickallen, which is the 3rd church in the parish. It's a rural parish set among rolling drumlin hills in the middle of County Cavan. It's, as I say, primarily rural and farming background of the community. The village is called Stradone. Where Father Donnelly was born, you couldn't say he really came from a town. He really did come from the middle of the countryside, from good farming stock. But he acquired his education, was ordained in 1845. That year where the famine was really starting to take hold in Ireland. But it was also a time of great change and upheaval, because, as I said, St. Michael's Church was built in 1821, and that was some years, in fact, before Catholic emancipation. What was that? Well, that's when, in 1829, Daniel O'Connell, who's known to the Irish as the Liberator, because he achieved the rights for Catholics to practice their faith freely through an Act of Parliament. And this was known in 1829 as Catholic emancipation. So Father Donnelly, as a young man growing up, lived through those times and brought that sense of pride in his faith to America with him, and brought it out to the frontier lands so that the seed of faith could be planted and grow there. I know that we're living through very strange times at the moment with this whole COVID crisis, but I think what we can do is take great heart and courage from Father Donnelly, the same courage that he had when he went out into the unknown to bring the message of Christ with him. We thank God for his witness. We pray that his witness will help to carry us through in these difficult times of COVID. And when these times are over, I certainly hope that if any of you ever get the opportunity, you'll come to Ireland and you'll visit the place where Father Donnelly was born and received his first education in the faith, where he received the faith, grew up in the faith he carried with him to such great effect to your part of the world. Thank you again. I wish you every blessing for this solemn celebration of the dedication of the Cathedral Church of the Immaculate Conception, and I pray God's choicest blessing upon you all. Thank you all, and I ask God especially to bless the ministry of Father Paul to you in that cathedral parish. Goodbye.